After the war, they took their guns, and with them, their freedom. What if the same thing is happening all over again, just with different words on paper? I'm Rian Kutsia, and I'm back with Jonathan Wright of the Firearms Policy Campaign. We're talking about firearm laws after the end of the Second World War. Jonathan, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Rian. Always great to be back. Slightly unsettled because of this amendment stuff that's going around at the moment,
Yep.
which actually does tie into what we're talking about tonight, because we're not just talking about the Boer territories, we're talking about the trajectory that was created as of this point in time. And we're kind of
Yes,
dealing with that legacy today.
but it fits in actually. So let me start with this. After the end of the Second Anglo-Boer War, British went ahead and introduced very strict firearm controls across then Boer territories. But in the process, they also targeted the Boers in the Cape. How did these early post-war laws shape South Africa's first firearm control systems? And what were the motives behind arming or restricting certain groups?
So the big takeaway from these laws is that we get all of the worst gun control up to this point as it manifested in Natal in terms of its laws. Cape a bit, but my research, my LLD research suggests that this is more Natal-inspired law, this hyper control aspect. And yeah, as you said, they targeted the Boers of the now defunct Orange Free State and ZAR, or Zuid-Afrikaanse Republiek, both renamed now to the Orange River Sovereignty and the Transvaal, respectively. But the Boers in the Cape were also targeted because, yeah, their loyalties were doubted. Like, there's that kinship. I mean, it's understandable. Like any it's a logical thing for any victorious power to do. Or, okay, this is not just during the war. This is also after the war. This is also before it. When you have people you suspect of being possibly disloyal, you would rather round them up and neutralize any threat that they are before they actually become a threat. But it shows that they didn't trust their own people in that sense. I mean, the Cape Afrikaner was not the same as the Cape Boer was not the same as the Orange Free State or ZAR Boer, for that matter. Didn't matter to the British. It's like this is an English versus Boer thing. So they're Boer, we don't trust them. And that's what they did. And remember that Peace Preservation Act we talked about in a couple of videos now, being used to disarm all the black people in the Cape.
Yes.
Well, there were some Cape Boers who at the time, now this is again, remember the late 1870s, 1880s, who also started to get a little nervous because the law was neutral on what the person looked like and how it could be applied. Remember, the Cape didn't discriminate formally on color, at least to any material extent. But the Cape Boers noticed this and were like, yeah, we're not too sure about our position because we can see how easily this could be used against us. Not that it mattered because their concerns were ignored. And well, that's exactly what ended up happening. The law was used against them during the Second Anglo-Boer War. And yeah, there you go. Don't trust government at all. Yeah, those are the motives. You don't trust the people. As far as the Boer territories are concerned, well, they're defeated people now. They need to stay defeated. And you definitely don't trust them. You just fought a war, and a very expensive and difficult one.
Yes.
So obviously you're going to take away their firearms, or as much weaponry and ability to resist as possible. Because at the end of the day, firearms are very powerful in a tactical sense. You fight wars with them, but they also do carry a lot of meaning. And sometimes that meaning is incorrectly understood, like Frere and Sprigg, who said, yep, firearms put stupid ideas into black minds. Well, now we're in the context of a war. It's understandable. You've just defeated these people. You want to make them stay that way. You don't want them to feel empowered or have agency or think that they have a chance at anything, really. You want to keep them defeated. So that's the logic behind all of it and why they did it and what happened, really.
Your article that you wrote on the Firearms Policy Campaign blog draws a clear line between firearm ownership, citizenship, and race. So let's talk about the laws between 1902, after the end of the Anglo-Boer War, the Second World War, and 1910. How did these laws begin linking the right to own a firearm to being a citizen of good conduct? I think those were the words that you used. And
Yeah,
how did
well,
this divide along racial lines influence South Africa's political and social structure after that? And it did so for decades.
so I don't think this color divide was necessarily the conscious intention. I mean, yes, it was, but also it wasn't. But like, if we put ourselves in the shoes of people living in that time, this is just how it was. The black people don't have rights. We do because we are white. Like that. That's it. It's a nominal statement. It's devoid of any morality or anything like that. Um, of course, it's wrong. We know that, but this is criticizing it in hindsight. From their perspective of the
Yeah.
time, white people can have guns, but black people can't. Simple as that. Um, so you mentioned the 1902 laws and then 1910. Slight changing of the timeline there, but so the 1902 laws, yes, those were the ones that, because the Treaty of Vereniging happened immediately after the war ended, and
Okay.
firearms were mentioned in that treaty specifically and said that they would have to be subject, rifles, but specifically would have to be licensed and that sort of thing. And this gave effect to the 1902 ordinances, which were really strict, and like licenses were valid for 1 year. And it was a bit of a process to get one. Rifle ownership in particular, as I mentioned, was like really, it was seen as very suspicious. Shotguns, fine. Pistols, handguns, fine. But
Mhm.
rifles, no, uh, as far as possible. How effective was it? I don't know. I don't think it was very effective. I mean, this is South Africa in 1902, and more than half the country is burned to the ground. So, yeah, what exactly are you ruling over other than a pile of ashes? But
True.
this was the British and the Boer situation after the immediately after the war. By 1905, the British started to kind of realize that, okay, it's now 3 years later, we are going to try. So the Confederation project happened in the 1870s. Now they've got another chance to make a federation, confederation, union, which is what they would settle on, whatever you want to call it. And they started moving towards that. But you can only do that. They had Boers and they had Brits, but they needed to make South Africans.
Mhm.
So an identity that straddled both sides of the fence, sort of thing. Now, you can't really do that if you're not treating half of your subjects, which is really what they all are at the end of the day. They're supposed to be citizens now, not yet, they're getting there. But you can't really make a people or a nation out of, well, when half of them are disenfranchised, don't have the same
Mhm.
rights, sort of thing. So they started to relax the weapons control and restrictions. And in 1907 and 1908, the Boer republics finally get their own firearm control legislation. And it is the same template as the 1902 stuff, but it's nowhere nearly as restrictive. Yes, everything
Okay.
is now licensed, and but now the licenses are valid for the lifetime of the bearer. So, woohoo.
Oh,
This,
that helps.
um, yeah, I don't want to compare it too much to what's going on in Natal and the Cape. They've got their own things and their permit system, but the Boer republics have licenses more or less what Natal has. Like I said, it was inspired by the Natal law. That's my conclusion. And these become the template for the 1937 Act, which is the template for the 1969 Act, which is the template for the Firearms Control Act. So by 1908, 1907, this is, even go just go back to 1902, this is the template for all South African farm legislation going forward in a more standardized form, if I can call it that. Although the roots are back in 1848 in Natal. So yeah, that's where it comes from. And in line with this, okay, who gets to have a license now? So the Transvaal Colonial Secretary, I couldn't get all of the Hansards for the Transvaal and Orange Free State, but this is one I could get. The Colonial Secretary said, like, well, we're debating this law, and every person of good repute and good conduct, every white person, that was the more specific reference, should have the right to own or have a firearm or a rifle. I can't remember exactly what it referred to. It doesn't really matter. And so here we get this very clear admission of sorts that if you are a citizen of a country, you need the government. Citizens of a country are trusted by the government. Therefore, citizens have certain rights. And one of these rights is firearm ownership and voting and all these other things that go on. But firearm ownership was like it nearly seemed to enjoy as much prominence as, say, the Second Amendment in the context of the United States. And this is where we can really spend a lot of time, well, at least we still need to do it, the work needs to be done, talking about the parallels with American Second Amendment culture, what Thomas Jefferson and all of them had to say about it. And here it's playing out in a similar way in South Africa, although it goes in a completely different direction. I don't know what the Boers really thought about these laws. Obviously, they would have been happy that they weren't dealing with the 1902 stuff anymore.
I can imagine.
But even if they weren't happy, what were they going to do? Start a war? So, yeah, that did not go well.
Got that T-shirt.
Yeah, play that game, won that stupid prize.
Yeah, remember for the viewers, this is now after the end of the Second Anglo-Boer War, so that's done and dusted.
And yeah, now we've got this real color divide in the law. Like the Cape and Natal have already decided ages ago, decades ago, yeah, black people, you can't have guns. Now the Boer republics are on the same page. And now you have this very clear, if you're white, you can have a firearm. If you're black, you can't. Except in very certain circumstances, very limited. But yeah, the die is cast, the scene is set. This is the track that we're going to travel along going forward.
So there's one thing that I found very interesting that I saw in that article of yours is you mentioned penalties for arming black South Africans.
Yes, it wasn't necessarily like arming as in, yeah, like depending how you want to argue the semantics. The point was if you were a firearm dealer and you sold a firearm to a black person and they didn't have a license, which they almost certainly wouldn't because the government made it very difficult for them to get, that had a £500 fine, which doesn't sound like too much in today's money. Multiply that by 23, you get around what, 10,000 rand, yeah, give or take. No, in terms of 1907, 1908 pound money, that's nearly, I think it was 500,000 rand. I can't remember the exact number. It was a lot. It was over 100,000 rand just for selling the gun to the black person. So, they did not like the idea of, they really did not want black people to have firearms. The Cape and Natal had made that clear. Now it was the turn of the Boer republics to also do that.
To do the same. Okay. Historically, the article argues that as you mentioned as well, trust between government and citizens, which is a mark of freedom and responsibility. Do you think the same trust still exists between the South African government? You shouldn't smile before I finish asking the question. between the South African government and citizens today, and how does that relationship compare to what the Boers and the Sotho or the Cape populations and everybody experienced way back then?
Yeah, I can't help but smile considering what I had to go and read
You
through
did,
today.
you did start laughing before I finished.
I could already see where the
It's
question was
actually
going.
very sad that, yeah,
It
it's sad that
is.
we laugh about it. It's not supposed to be. Yeah.
You know, it's like what? It's not it's the Stockholm, not even Stockholm syndrome. It's uh Schadenfreude. I don't know what to call it. Like you can't help but you just acknowledge the circus that goes on around you. Uh, but yeah, as far as trust goes, I was reading through, like, let's actually just use the um the amendment proposal document, discussion policy document,
Mhm.
whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. It's all the same, official or not, who cares? The sentiment, we know what they want. They made it very clear
Mhm.
over and over again. But in they rewrite the preamble, they rewrite the purposes, they insert an objects and principles clause. And first of all, it blames the South African firearm owner for causing all of the problems in the country with terms of crime. This is the control
Yeah.
rationale, the idea that firearms cause crime and that you have to control every single one of them, like obsessively, manic, obsessive control, like Natal did during the colonial era, turning over every single rock they could find to license and permit and register every firearm out there. That's what is happening now. So the South African government, like the FCA already does this, but apparently it doesn't do it well enough, so it needs to do it harder. And the South African farm owner is the reason why we have all these problems in the country. And they no, they do not. To answer the question bluntly, no, they do not trust us. It's difficult to really say who does not trust us because my argument is that the ANC does not care. They are the ones in charge of the police portfolio, Minister of Police. But the bureaucracies are the ones running the show, and they're just letting them do whatever they want. And the bureaucracies are unelected bureaucrats, and yeah, they don't care who gets trusted or not. Like at the end of the day, they have the power of a pen to do whatever they want, and they've got the sanction to do it because no one's telling them stop doing that. You're making us look bad. But no, South African farm owners are not trusted. In fact, they are seen to be the fault, the cause, the problem of all of South Africa's violent crime problems because they are providing firearms, even though more than half of all violent crime does not involve a firearm. But apparently, that's also their fault because it just has to be. It has to be for the logic to work. No, the South African government, however you define it, does not trust its people, and it wants to punish them for being untrustworthy and take away their firearms and subject them to a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Because how else do you do it?
Exactly. It's interesting to note how whenever this argument comes up that legal firearm owners who by and large are the most law-abiding citizens of any country, um, they supply firearms to the criminals, but nobody mentions the amount of firearms, the scary amount of firearms that is supplied to criminals by the government via nefarious ways and via theft and stuff just getting lost. I mean, can you remember during COVID when the
We
mob
don't have to go
invaded?
back to COVID. It happened, what, the other day that 200 firearms were missing from a store somewhere else. Doesn't even matter.
There
You
you
don't even have
go.
to remember where it happened. You just know it happened.
And it did. And it did. Because I'm thinking specifically about that case where, no, it wasn't in
Norwood,
COVID, it
I
was
think.
2021 with the big uprisings in KZN where all that
But
ammunition
oh, the
vanished.
ammunition, yeah. That
Yes,
one we don't know. We don't even know what happened to that. Yeah.
exactly.
But what a lot of people, and this is like maybe it's a nuance. It's certainly not a semantic, but it is a nuance, and a lot of people skip over it. Gun Free South Africa is correct when they say that private farmer owners lose more farms than the state. Yes, because you're
Mm.
talking in gross numbers. You
Yes.
numpties. Like when you have 3.5 million firearms, or 1.5, let's put it this way. Yeah. When you have 3.5 million firearms in private civilian ownership, if it is that many, who knows really, but the point is there's a lot of them. That's more farms than just in the possession of the state. There are 1.5
Yes.
to 2 million farm owners. There are not that many police officers or army in the country, and they're the ones that get issued firearms. So
Mm.
obviously the opportunity, the risk of loss, there's always going, even if it's just 1%, 1% of 1.5 million is more than 1% of 100,000. Duh. So as long as private farm ownership is a thing, there will be losses. There will be a lot of it because, especially if there
Mm.
are a lot of civilian farm owners, and we need to stop obsessing with uh, this whole thing about, oh yeah, but they lose more than we do per capita or gross numbers. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't
but
really matter.
it's
It's,
an it's an easy argument for them to make, Jonathan, because it
yeah,
suits the agenda.
it is. And we
Um,
often, as the farm community, often go for it hook, line, and sinker and swallow it whole. In fact, we just swallow the whole fishing rod while we're at it as well, because this is not an argument you can win. So stop trying to win it. Read the
yeah.
writing on the wall. It's not difficult. It's obvious. It's basic math. As long as there are
Mm.
lots of private farm owners, there will be lots of losses. End of story. So I'm getting very
Well,
worked up now.
it's supposed to be the end of story, except that, for the people who are driving the agenda of disarming South Africans, um, it remains this almost the crux of their argument, and they cling to that because that's all they have.
It is. They don't have a lot of other arguments to make. So they
Mm.
have to do these silly word games and moving, shifting goalposts. And and like, who is going to disagree with them when they say people must stop losing so many firearms? Like,
Mm.
yes, like every reasonable person is going to say, like, yes, its rates need to be lower, but why? It's not like it causes crime, which is what Gun Free South Africa says. It's what the Firearms Control Act says. It's what the entire control rationale says, but that's not true. What is a firearm? It's a pretty small object. And what happens to small objects? They get lost. Now, yes,
Yeah.
you really shouldn't lose them. Like, there are things you should do to take good care of them and custodianship because they are dangerous items. But loss is an inevitable part of life in everything. Your keys, your phone, your wallet, your firearm. Like, yes, I know people are like, oh, but those are apples and oranges. It doesn't matter. It's still a movable object. It's going to get lost. Stop
I
trying to
lost
fight reality.
I lost my reading glasses yesterday. Um,
I've
and
lost
now
count of how many
everybody's gonna know.
hearing aids my grandmother lost before she passed.
So I found them eventually, but they were definitely lost there for a while. And that was a bit of a problem because ideally I needed them to find them, if you know what I'm saying.
The irony.
So
Uh,
the
but
irony.
but my point is, like,
Jonathan,
why are we so upset when about this whole loss thing? Yes, we know it's undesirable, but it's going to happen and it doesn't cause crime. We don't want criminals to have guns. Yes, everybody can agree that this is a preferable outcome, but they will get them from somewhere. And
they
it's
will.
not just from the lawful farm owners. Many times it
Have
is
you
because,
seen
but it's a
have
circle.
you seen
Uh,
what's happening in Australia?
I have not. Like, nothing good
Have you
happens
seen
there.
how the firearm incidents, shooting incidents are increasing hand over fist? And I mean, they have. Well, you're not allowed to have a firearm for self-defense in Australia.
I mean,
You can have.
farm ownership is possible there, but yeah, it is quite strict. It's nowhere nearly as liberal as it was, say, pre
Yes,
1996. The What I can say about Australia is that I crunched some numbers. I know we're going quite a bit of, maybe a little bit off topic, but maybe your
sure.
audience is going to enjoy this because there's certainly a lot of energy going in this direction, especially from me, because I'm getting really worked up about some of this stuff. But when I crunched the numbers with Australia, I went and counted the death toll of people killed in massacres between the Whiskey Our Go fire, I think in 1975, and
Mhm.
up until the end of 1996 when the Port Arthur massacre happened. I
Yes.
can't remember the exact number, but the number was X. Then I counted the number of people killed in massacres from after the Port Arthur until present day, which at the time was 2016, 2017, and the number was almost exactly the same for the same time period. And this
Mhm.
included the first number included Port Arthur, which was the worst, like 46 people shot and killed. My point was that the Australian population stayed the same in that time. It didn't go massively up or down. It was around 20 million people.
Mhm.
The rate of death in massacres was the same before and after they made their firearm laws really strict. What did they achieve? Yes, the use of firearms in massacres went down, but the total massacre rate stayed the same. What does it say? It says that nobody cares about your stupid laws. If somebody wants to do something bad, they will do it. Look
Jonathan,
at
that's the part that boggles my brain every time I think about it, which is often, is that how many people seem to think that a criminal needs a firearm to do crime? Um,
it's there is that, but my other frustration is that when people like Gun Free South Africa bring this up in arguments and debates on news stations or whatever the context, the person who gets called in to counter them or be the opposing voice, they don't know these stats. They can only speak in nominal terms, and very often they end up just playing by the rules of the game that Gun Free South Africa themselves wrote. You can't win the game when your opponent keeps writing the rules. Like, I should really, I guess, make a what's like a Udemy course or a how-to video that we can distribute. And I'm not trying to criticize the farm community in South Africa. Like, you need knowledge to be able to answer these things, and this is not knowledge that people have on the fly. You need to go and research these things and anticipate the questions, and this is difficult to do when it is not your full-time job. And as mentioned
yes,
before, and I say it all the time, there's almost nobody in the farm community in South Africa that is full-time invested in this issue of farm rights. It's a part-time passion project for everyone that gets everyone's full attention when something rolls around, like 2028 or 2018, 2021, whatever. But as soon as the danger goes away, they go back to their full-time lives. Meanwhile, Gun Free South Africa is there in the background doing this full-time, chipping away
yep,
all the time.
they never
So,
rest.
yeah.
Jonathan, last but not least,
So,
your piece concludes that the firearm policy as we see it today reflects the same sort of logic as the disarmament drives of the 19th and the early 20th centuries. Just in this case, apply to everyone, not just a single group. So, in your view, what lessons from South Africa's firearm history are being ignored today? And what does it say about things like freedom and responsibility and trust in 2025?
well, so all of the lessons are being ignored, but whose fault is that exactly? I don't really know. Uh, I don't really think there's anyone to really blame per se. No one has really thought about this. Like, what are the lessons? Um, like you can grab someone from Saga or any of the other groups and say, "Hey, what are the lessons from South African gun control from its entire history?" And they are going to probably give you a nominal answer. They're not going to give you a really meaningful one. But what are the lessons? Well, the lessons are one, the control rationale does not work. It has never worked. Every single time we have tried to do something to get control, it has failed. And I can give specific examples down to the year that they made the change to try and get this change they wanted. It never
Mm,
works. It failed every single time. And here we are playing the same game. We're fighting the same battle that is fighting the control rationale that anybody would have fought back in 1902. We are fighting the same battle that they fought back in 1875 and 1878 in the Cape when they dealt to deal with the Peace Preservation Act. That says two things. One, nobody's learned from history and the lessons at all. It also says that very, very few, if anyone at all, really, has even tried to understand what we're actually supposed to, like, what is possible and what is not. Like, what is the rationale? I've never heard anyone articulate the Firearms Control Act in any meaningful way. I feel like, and I'm not trying to blow my own horn here, but when I say the Firearms Control Act is just a continuation of the control rationale that has failed over and over again, I mean, that is a much more pointed and specific statement than what I've heard anywhere else. And we really need to start thinking about this broadly as a community. And why do we keep putting up with it? Like I've said, the existing
Yeah.
community is very good at defending what we have, and they're very good at that, and they need to keep doing that. But we do need to start also pushing the needle in the opposite direction. And I do feel like things are lining up in a broad sense across the spectrum that we could actually do this. Who would lead that? Almost without question, it would have to be someone like the Firearms Policy Campaign, because we're the only ones that actually understand the control rationale. But we certainly would not be able to do it alone. It would need everyone's buy-in. It would need everyone's support. The community that is so good at defending things, they would probably need to just stay doing that and be the vanguard so that somebody else can go and push for new ground. It's a whole plan that needs to be articulated and fleshed out, but this only comes with talking, and we are a young organization. The farms community in South Africa is broadly unified and standing their ground. That's good, but it needs more organizing than that. So watch the space is all I can say.
So in a sad nutshell, to conclude this, we're basically fighting the same battles that people fought 100 and 150 years ago,
Yep,
because we've
exactly.
learned nothing. And the way the government sort of
We haven't
considers its
tried to learn
citizens,
anything new.
as in, well, the way the government
And
looks
yeah,
at it, its citizens certainly doesn't seem to have changed anything at all, because the trust is non-existent.
no.
And then we have to continue picking up the pieces of this as they just continue this drive. Sad. History is
But
there to learn from, but we never seem to do that, do we?
these amendments that we're kind of dealing with now, or staring at in the face, they they affirm that it is the job of, like, when they amend the preamble, it says the duty of safety and security and integrity of the person, like ensuring safety and security, that is the job of the state. When it's just like you look out the window and you think, what safety? Like, what states? What
Yes,
security?
yes,
And it starts off by saying, it like really just tries to affirm this. The Firearms Control Act, actually no, this goes in the principles and objects that they want to add. The first principle being farm ownership is not a right. It is a privilege regulated under law, and that law is dependent, or conditional is the word they use, on the need to maintain social stability and order and those sorts of things. So yeah, the read between the lines, you are a subject, you filthy peasant, get over
yep,
yourself, accept it, give us your guns and shut up and sit in the corner. And there's nothing legitimate about how we made this law, but who cares? You have to deal with it, and
yep.
while we waste your time.
And don't make your
Um,
problem ours.
yeah, so you have no freedom. You have no responsibility. That's our job. Like, yeah, we fail miserably at this responsibility, but it's ours. We're going to claim it, and you're going to like
Yep,
it. If you want if you want a self-defense firearm, you can do that with a Section 13 license, but now you have to really give us reasons why. You have to give us examples of things that happen to you, that
yeah, how's that?
directly happen to you, that give you reason to fear for your life. Not what happened to your neighbor, what happened to you. That is
Oh,
what do we have to deal with? Like, this is supposed to be a serious law.
How do you get to that level of thinking? You live in a country with the levels of violence that we experience every single day of our
Oh no,
lives.
we don't experience this violence at all. As far as the drafters are concerned, we all live in the same. We all have the same, what, 1.5 million rand a year salaries that they do, and live in some luxury lifestyle estate like midstream
Exactly.
or wherever. Crime, there's none of that. I went outside, I walked. My children play in the street and they're perfectly fine. What's wrong
Yeah.
with you? Like,
What are you
these
talking about?
people, it is
That
disgusting.
that arrogance gets to me. Like, we feel all right, and we feel that you should just keep quiet and live with this problem that we
Yeah.
created to begin with.
Yeah, that we created. I know we started this video to talk about the Boer Republic laws and how it kind of got to where we are today, but they are, and we were going to make a separate video about this whole 2025 amendment thing, but it looks like we've made it anyway prematurely. But it is linked,
Well,
and
it's linked. I mean, it's so closely linked that it was inevitable that we were going to mention it. But Jonathan, I'm
and
going to end it there. And then we will chat again soon for the viewers and the listeners. As always, there you go, Jonathan Wright, Firearms Policy Campaign.
read
And
my latest
if you
article
read
on the
his latest
FPC blog,
article, yes,
fpc.co.za. Go there, go to blog, check the latest
there you
article.
go.
You'll see where I really rant about this thing. And I think we will have to make a proper video just
It's
dedicated
a
to it.
it's a worthwhile article to read. Go check it out. If you are interested in any of the loan operator training courses, as always, there's a link below the video. Check it out. We hope to see you on a range one of these days. And like the video, subscribe to the channel, smash that bell icon so you can get notifications of all our new videos coming out. That's it from me, Jonathan. See you soon. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Rian. We'll chat soon.